Okie dokie. All right. Welcome back. So today we are talking about the Magician, which, if we go by my readings of this chapter, Sallie Nichols wants us to think of the Magician as an entity of logos to balance out the fully intuitive and chaotic life of the Fool. She paints this card in a much more academic and intellectual light, and makes sort of an allusion to this card being consciousness. She doesn't necessarily explicitly say that in the chapter, but she brings up consciousness and the Magician, the card, so frequently in conjunction with each other that I have to infer that that's something she's trying to bring across. What she does explicitly say is at the end of the chapter that the Magician represents a conscious link between the self and the ego. And that's sort of a lot to process. So a more bite-sized chunk is to think of the Fool as chaos, and then to think of the Magician as order made from that chaos, which is a very difficult thing to do, and so you need tools. The Magician has his tools, and among the most important, I think, is synchronistic phenomena, which, if you're not quite aware, that is a Jungian concept defined as the meaningful coincidence of a psychic and a physical event which cannot be causally connected with one another and are separated in space or time. This continues to give an example, which is essentially deja vu, having a dream and then experiencing those dream events essentially exactly as they happened in real life. This, for me at least, feels a lot like pattern recognition. And for the Magician, this tool is being able to sort of take your internal understanding and use it in conjunction with your physical experiences to sort of manipulate things to go your way, to follow the intuitive guide and the external clues to help you get to the best possible outcome. And that's very cool, but is not the thing that was most interesting to me. The most interesting thing to me was this almost 2-page tangent that Sallie Nichols takes about the card 15, the Devil, and its connection with the Shadow. And if you're not quite sure what the Shadow is, it's another Jungian concept. And as a very, very basic definition, it's the parts of ourselves, specifically our psyche, that we do not want to acknowledge or interact with. It's stuff that we sort of ignore and shove into a corner and never come back to because we don't want to look at them. We don't want to say that is a part of me because we just don't like it. And we'll talk more about the Shadow when we get to 15, the Devil, because I think, as Sallie Nichols states, it's a really good idea of the Shadow. But that ties into my understanding of reading cards as inverses. And so I will read you my note about that. The Shadow is vital to tarot and exploring each card's duality. Some feel the need to read inverses to help them find this shadow, which is not necessarily an opposite meaning, but it is one that completes the meaning of the card with its natural complement. For example, let's take 1, the Magician. This is a card about creation, so depending on the spread or the energy and the context, its inverse might be that direct opposite, destruction. But it might also be simply abandoning the project or the idea or the relationship. Or maybe it's moving in a new and unconsidered direction. Or perhaps it's that your work has been mostly just a deception of yourself, and it's time to course correct. For me, each of the cards has this sort of complementary meaning, whether it is a positive card or a negative card. There are aspects of both in each. And for some people, that physical cue of having the card inverted helps them understand that this is the sort of interpretation rather than taking just a straight traditional interpretation of the card. But for me, that sort of like, that feels a little too limiting. And so I don't usually read with inverted cards in any of my decks. But that's not to say that it's a wrong practice. That's just, for me, that doesn't feel right. If that feels right for you, then do it. Absolutely. But I think it's a very interesting thing to think about how the card represents an idea, but also its natural sort of complement, and not in the terms of like, you look nice today, but like the part that makes it whole, the wholeness of it. I'm not sure if that made as much sense as I wanted it to, but that's everything that I wanted to say, and I will see you for our next card, 2, the High Priestess. Okay, love you, bye!